Yo, what's good, YouTube? What's good? It's Stormybman, and I am back welcoming you to the post-fight show with Stormybman and with Boxing Conversations with Reggie Owens as we come to you for this Sunday special edition, June 27th, 2021, where we had some fights on a Sunday evening. Another rare occurrence, but we're glad that we got it in because guess what? It was lit once again. A fight card by the PBC on Fox, so it was free TV. If you missed it, too bad, too sad, because we're going to talk about it now, and you're just going to have to go back and look at it for yourself. But it ain't nothing like catching it live. Let me introduce my co-host here. We got Boxing Conversations with Reggie Owens in the house. What's going on with you, Reggie, man? You had me rolling as I was preparing to launch the show, talking about how Mexican people party, man. You ain't never lied. It's like they know how to keep it going till the break and beyond the break of dawn, don't they? So, yeah, but come on in, Reggie. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, but yeah, they be partying like it ain't no tomorrow, man. If anybody can party, they can party.
Yes, sir.
No
yes,
doubt
sir.
about it, bro.
Hey, man, and listen, the main event, man, you didn't even get a chance to go to the fridge and get a cold one or get your popcorn out the microwave or nothing, man. This guy, Morrell, he warmed it up, David, Reggie. He David Morrell, yeah, he warmed it up, man, and he gave that guy a 2-piece biscuit, fries, and a shake on his way down. And you had me tripping when you was talking about he had his legs crossed up like he was in the Indian position. But hey, man, it was some good stuff, man. Way to top it off with that cherry again. What are your thoughts?
Man, what a way to come out there, man. And I think that main fight fed off the energy of that co-main event. But Morrell and they start out super hyper in that fight. I was saying the ref needs to get this under control. The way that they just started out was very, very active. It was hyper aggressive. Then it was a vicious low blow thrown out there by Cazares, however you say his name, Cazares, threw out that vicious low blow. But then he was throwing some right hands, and I was worried that he was going to end up catching Morrell, who Morrell caught him with, because Morrell just seemed a little bit antsy. He was playing a little bit too much in the crowd. Towards the announcement, I kept seeing him look up in the crowd. There was a good turnout of Cubans up in there, and he was looking to entertain, but he came out there very reckless, missing a lot of his shots, but just continued to put on the press. And once the refs started to kind of settle things down, there's a lot of roughhouse going on. He just set up that nice, what was that, a left or right hand, straight down the middle, rocked the dude, and then it was a second punch coming behind it that put the lights out. Watched that dude fall back, and he didn't know what the heck hit him. Watched them legs crossed up trying to get up, and it was comedy after that. Like I said, it was in that ring partying. They didn't give two dangs about the dude who's knocked out, man. It was instant partying. And for this guy to only have 4 fights, there's a huge backing behind him. There's a huge following behind that guy. But that was a way to close out a card that was already started as a good card. And he put the finishing touches on it with a first round 1 or 2 punch knockout that ended the night. That was a cold way to not lose your moment to such an impressive co-main event.
Yeah, and question, Reggie, is he a guy that, because I'm not going to sit and even try to pretend like I know who he is or anything about him, but is he someone that came from an outstanding amateur backdrop or something? Because I actually know nothing about Morrell.
No, I'm in the same boat as you. I probably got to see if Lawrence Williams out there. I'm in the same boat as you with him. I'm wondering if he's an Olympian or something with how fast he moved through.
Yeah, because, they said this was his 5th fight or something?
Yep, this is the 5th fight right there.
Yeah, so that would tell me that, he had to have some type of amateur pedigree that they decided to move him along quickly like that. And the fact that he, with so little experience as far as professionally, it's obvious he knows how to, let's just simply say it's obvious that he knows how to entertain. But it's just interesting to see, to know a little bit more about him, because there was not a lot of time for me to get my information on him. But I can tell by those 2 right hands that he landed that boy ain't no joke when he punches. So he's definitely got something going for him there when it comes down to putting his hands on somebody. But it really also looked like a pretty much, as I like to call him, a showcase fight for him, because the guy didn't have any punch resistance. You know, as soon as he got hit, tagged solidly, he went. And he'd be fortunate if he didn't break his leg or tear his knee with the way he went down. But they both, as you stated, they came out swinging for the fences. They were both kind of wild. And the ref, like you stated, didn't get in there to try to settle them down or anything. He just kind of let it go. And it ended up being, the finale came quick as a result of that. I'm not an advocate of letting guys just go out there and be wild and everything like that. You, as the ref, you're supposed to assume some kind of control over the matches and everything, and you could kind of see that didn't take place. But hey, this whole weekend the refs have been questionable, man. It's like they've been doing some crazy stuff, and this was just a finishing it off, you know, for the weekend, because we've seen so much of that this weekend with the fight cards that have taken place and the fighters, you know. But yeah, it was one of those situations where you could kind of see the ref, he didn't have control. But what did you think overall of his performance? You know, all jokes aside and whatnot, what you were able to see in such short time of Morrell's performance.
The finishing touches was good, but he was out a little too wild, just out a little bit too wild. He's missing punches, but he never got caught with anything. He was looking to go in here, just get this guy up out of here. He viewed this guy as probably somebody who shouldn't have been in the ring with him, and that's what he was going with. And I think he was just a little bit not rattled in nerves, but a little bit too excited about the moment. And I think over time, with his experience, he won't get himself that upward in excitement. He'll keep his nerves calm and go in there and do what he's supposed to do. But ultimately, I can't complain too much because he got that guy out of there in quick fashion. But he was missing a lot of punches just from being a little bit too over aggressive at the moment. But otherwise, it's a good performance with the 2 punches to get the guy up out of there. Can't complain about that one.
Yeah, it was a very outstanding performance by Morrell. He took care of business. He didn't even have to pay the meter where he parked outside, so he'll be able to get on to that party. Like you said, they started early in the ring, and it's probably going to go on till tomorrow night, if not the rest of the week, because, like you said, they know how to party, and there's going to be a lot of jobs they call off tomorrow. So don't you get mad at them folks when they don't show up to work, because they going to party and celebrate for tonight. But hey, you know, let's stop the stalling, Reggie. Let's just get down to business, man. That co-main event, Apache versus Glanton. Dude, that is the fight of the year thus far, I think. But let me know what you think, Reggie, and take your time and tell everybody about this fight, man. If they didn't see it, what they missed.
Man, I feel bad for anyone that missed this fight. Man, literally, I feel bad for you if you didn't watch this fight. You have to go back and check it, because I think I got more brain damage than what these 2 fighters had. I don't know if these fighters got brains in their heads or if there's just mechanical gears up in there, because the punches these dudes hitting each other with, from the bell to start this fight to the bell that ended this fight, every single punch was explosive punches. They didn't pity pat nothing. They really didn't too much hold for anything. They landed vicious shots to the body. I don't see how these guys only getting hurt once a piece, maybe twice a piece. It was just something unexplainable. I don't get how these dudes who are big, these are big dudes too. These at least 200 plus pound dudes, muscular, ripped up dudes, firing off these big Deontay Wilder type shots up on each other. And taking the punches clean, rocking each other's heads back. This fight was, from start to finish, an amazing fight. It ain't too many fights that you put up against this one that's going to be better than this one. This is such an enjoyable fight. And what motivated the guy Galento was the fact that he stated that he thought they were trying to play him short, like he wasn't a worthy guy, like they just brought him in here for a peachy pole to just walk through. Peachy, I already say his name, to just come in here and walk through because he's been knocking out people in such an impressive fashion. I know he's close with Efe Ajagba, so it's kind of those kind of guys known for their power, getting guys up out of there. But now he faced a match with somebody equally as strong as him, and this guy may have been not even equal. He may have been stronger than Apicho, and kept coming at him, pushing him back, putting pressure on him, landing these big shots. He'll land big shots, having to fight off the back foot. I mean, everything about this fight was just an amazing fight. Action-packed, kept you up on your feet, and that crowd even showed. And I think that's probably what fired up that main event. From seeing what they watched, seeing how thrilled that crowd was, he knew he had to add on top of what these guys did for 10 straight rounds. And then you watch to where Galento caught Apichu towards the end of the round on the ropes, knocked him out. I think he knocked him out because that dude kind of slumped over. He went to sleep for a second, got hit with another punch, woke back up as the bell was ringing, had to make an 8 count, and then continued on. And then he continues on, surviving that round, then goes forward. Then he gets hurt to the body, I think in the 9th round, almost buckled his knees. He locks back up and comes back more with fighting. Then he ends up hurting Galento in the 10th round. He hurt Galento bad, and Galento's stumbling back, and he should have went in there a little bit quicker to try to get some more punches in there, but Galento ended up surviving, and they got to have that fight. They're going to definitely have a rematch in this fight, but I think these fighters may need time off, but the way that these fighters seem to be okay after the end of the fight, they may be ready to get back in there, but that was a war, and they're going to need some time off. That was a major war right there. Non-stop, total entertainment right there. Total entertainment in that fight.
Yeah, when you talk about him going down, I think that was in that 7th round where he was up against the ropes and Glanton hit him with that shot and then hit him again and he slumped over. You know, there's a saying in boxing that the old guys the trainers used to say. They used to yell, "Let him fall, let him fall." That means to step back and let the guy go down and don't let him fall into a clinch for you or something like that. But there's also something else in the sport of boxing that's been around a very long time, which is why they tell you to kill the body and the head dies. When he caught him with that good shot like that, I know the consensus is when you're looking at a guy who's hurt like that is to continue to drill him in his mug. But some guys, Reggie, when you throw that next shot, the shot can wake them back up. And Ali talked about that. I think it was either against George Foreman or a few years later against Ernie Shavers, where he said he was hit and he was out, but a follow-up punch woke him back up and he was able to rouse and grab the guy. And, you know, so I think it was George Foreman. But it can happen in a match. You could get hit with a couple of shots and one can take you out and the other one can wake you up. The only time that doesn't happen is like when you hit the guy and he goes down and hit the canvas, because when he has no momentum to break his fall and the head bangs against that canvas, that's typically, you know, what finishes it right there, because you that's a true concussion type situation, a double whammy, so to speak. But some guys, and Apache, he reminds me of one of those men who definitely can take it to the chin. You know, there have been guys who've taken softball bats to the head and everything, and they keep on going. It's like 2x4, whatever. he's one of those guys. Oliver McCall was like that. So it would have behooved Glanton to follow up with some serious body shots whenever he got the guy hurt, because when a guy can take punches, obviously in this case Apache could take a good shot. You could tell that, but especially as long as he's seeing everything, I don't think he saw that shot that caught him up against the ropes, and that's what really put him out. But when you can see everything, you can get ready embrace yourself for impact. But with the body, you can see the punch coming and it still hit you in the body, and your organs on the inside start doing funny things, because it's like, oh, wow, where'd that come from? That kind of thing. But what a fight. I haven't seen action like that between two heavyweights for a full distance, I think going back to David Tua and Ika Biabuchi, really, because that's what that was. And they say cruiserweights, but these two guys was 200 pounds, a little over, so that's heavyweight as far as I'm concerned. Regardless if they try to tell us about this bridgerweight crap and, super heavyweights and all of that. Heavyweights has always been over 200, and that's what it's going to be. But these two men, they were both able to endure. They were both able to dish out. I was remarking as listening to your call, I'm like, Glanton is the first football player I've seen enter the sport of boxing and come in with the type of technique that he displayed. He didn't look like a football player crossing over. He looked like a guy who's boxed for some years. Maybe he's a guy that fought in the streets. Maybe he's a guy that hung out in gyms and stuff like that. But it is obvious that his technique is pretty darn good for a former football player and now a two sports personality. I was very impressed with how he kept his guard up. Lennox Lewis spoke about that, and Joe Goosen, spoke about that as well. The man kept his hands up in great positions. He was throwing double shots off of a single shot, like a jab and a hook, or a right hand and an uppercut. He was like putting combinations together very well as a seasoned fighter, even though I think he came in with his record was 11-0 or something like that. But I was very impressed with his abilities and his technique. They say that Apache was trained by Ronnie Shields, but he was very reckless with his defense. He's not defensively responsible at all. He could have won this fight easily had he been more mindful of defense, because he gave Glanton a lot of clean shots at him when it was totally unnecessary. And then he elected to shake his head at him and say no, you ain't hurt me and stuff like that, instead of focusing up and trying to get at him. And in that regard, you could see his experience over Glanton, because he was able to do things more comfortably where it might have taken Glanton the time to think about what he was doing. See, when you're a natural, you've been doing it a while, that's another thing. It's like second nature. You can get away with certain things. And remember, there were instances where he went back to the jab, talking about Apache, and he made the fight a different type of fight when he did that. He would get back to that jab. There was something that I saw Glanton do that I didn't like a lot, is at certain points in the fight, he was bending over to his right a lot, and Apache didn't take advantage of those opportunities when a guy bends down like that, or when that guy who's the opponent puts his head beneath your shoulders. When he puts his head beneath your shoulders, there are certain things as an experienced fighter you are supposed to do to him to both wear him down, make him more fatigued, and to catch him with certain blows. But overall, man, what a fight. These men, can you count how many times they clinched in this fight, Reggie? Because I don't recall too many clinches, bro. and they were going at it. Heavy-handed men, both of them. And both of them come in with a lot of knockouts. So I had said, before the bell rang for the first round, I was like, somebody getting knocked out in this fight. No, they both went the distance. Very impressive. And I'll tell you, if either one of them decide to move on up into that heavyweight division, they might be able to make some noise up there. I mean, Mike Hunter is up there, right? And they both got a little bit more than Hunter has physically. You know what I mean? And plus can take it too. So those are my opening thoughts about that fight. The co-main that turned out to be the real main, Very impressed with this fight, Reggie.
Yeah, and these guys going to end up rematching again, man. And it's probably going to be put on a bigger stage because it's going to be that exciting of a fight. These guys have really made themselves some future money with that performance. Hopefully they made them some additional money with that performance as well. But the rematch is going to happen. That's one of the fights to where you don't even want to fight that type of person no more. You like, man, them one of the fights you want to avoid for a minute. But with the money that's going to be offered to them, they're getting right back in there. They're going to definitely offer that fight. And depending upon how many viewers saw this, it's going to be something that people clamor, people demand to want to see, and it's going to get put back out there. But there's really no losers in this fight. That's why I hate it for anyone to have to win the decision, because there's no losers in this fight. But I think if anybody was the one, I thought it should have been Galenta. But it was just that kind of fight. Like, for me, it was that kind of fight where I didn't want nobody to win that one. I wanted it to be a draw, even though there was a knockdown in it that kind of separated things. But even the judges saw it as a close fight. These guys didn't hold nothing up off the gas. There was no brake pedals being pressed in this fight. They let every punch deliver with some kind of meaning to it. Every punch had a purpose to it. And they had a purpose to where they wasn't going to hold each other. They wasn't going to do any of that. They were going to sit in there and fight and try to see who can best too. And they come to find out they both can take a dang punch. But in that next fight, hopefully they get a little bit more technical. And they got to be ready for war, because it's going to be a war between these guys. They probably end up doing that. They probably do that 2 or 3 times, especially if they go into decisions and fighting like that. Fans will want to see that a third time. That tonight was a mind-blowing fight. My mind was blown watching that.
Unbelievable action. Matter of fact, it says that we have 20 people checking us out right now and 18 thumbs up, which is pretty nice. The other 2, just go ahead and hit that like button, man, so we can balance out our viewership as well as the likes, because if you're here, it's obvious that you're here to hear us talk about it. But I like everybody who saw this fight that's listening out there and participating in the chat. Please put a 1 in the chat if you saw the fight tonight and you want to see a rematch of these 2 guys. PBC be finding people, Reggie. It's amazing. And they said that Apache is trained by Ronnie Shields, right? So where has this guy been? Has Shields been keeping him away from us? Because I don't recall seeing him. I know they showed a highlight of one of his fights, and that might have been on an undercard of something that didn't get televised, or it might have been one of those televised that was on like PBC Fox 1 or something, of a main event card that took place on Fox or something like that. But Apache he's no slouch. He can fight and he's a tough guy. But guys like that are not built to last if they're not going to be defensively responsible, because you have to take care of yourself in there, in a division where pretty much one punch is going to get you up out of there. And we do know that these are pretty much heavyweights. They try to call them cruiserweights, but they're smallish heavyweights, kind of like the size of Mike Tyson used to be, or Evander Holyfield when he first came up to the heavyweight division. But Ronnie Shields training that guy, I'm like, man, that dude is a tough one, bro. And then also for Mr. Glanton. You know, he came out of nowhere. A lot of people are going to be asking about him now because, again, you coming from another sport like football. You know, they say he told his college coaches, he's like, hey, man, you know, I'm about done with this. He said, I'm going to go pursue my dream, and that's to become a professional boxer. And you look at him, I don't know how much time lapsed from the time he elected to stop playing football, but I think they said he was a defensive lineman or something. So it meant that he was at least 250 plus pounds or over that. And he was down to 200 pounds as a professional fighter. So he shrank his body down a great deal with sacrifice to get in prime boxing shape. And you see a lot of guys trying to transfer from one sport to another, and they'll come out there and they'll be like, you know, a little extra pounds and stuff like that. And I always am an advocate of saying, like, hey, get in the best shape possible before getting in there professionally, because you want to always be at your best and perform at your optimum. And if it requires you to lose another 20 pounds or so, do that first, because you're going to be glad that you made the commitment. And we've seen so many guys come in not at their best and trying to fool themselves into thinking that they were good, even though they could have lost a few extra pounds. Andy Ruiz Jr. is one of those guys. You know, he says he's comfortable fighting at 250 plus pounds and whatnot, but I'm of the notion and belief that Andy Ruiz Jr. is a 218, 220 pound heavyweight. And yes, that's small in today's current bunch of heavyweights, but imagine if Andy got in that type of shape with the hand speed that he has, and he got his cardio up and everything, he'd run some guys out of that ring. So those are just some thoughts I would like to have had about this, Reggie. Great fight between these two men. And if they have a major pay-per-view, like let's say by the end of the year or spring of next year, give these guys a chance to come back and do it again. Or allow one of them to get some kind of intercontinental title or interim title and have them fight for something, because that's more of a motivating factor there. But man, you can't draw this up, man. This is like, I'm going to go back and watch this fight again. Really enjoyed it. But I was tremendously impressed with what I saw there and didn't even know both guys. I'm like, wow. And I asked you in your chat, Reggie, who had won that 8th round, because that's the one round that I didn't see. I was still listening to your call, but I didn't see it because I had got up and went to the washroom. And it was like, I didn't know, what had happened, because as I was scoring the fight, my scorecards ended up a lot like what the final score was, a split decision, in the favor of Glanton. But I kind of thought that, maybe something might have happened in that round that I didn't see that could have been a swing round. But either guy could have won this decision here. But like you said, it should have been a draw, just to kind of like not mar their records, to make it look like, hey, if you guys going to face each other again, it's for all the marbles, and see who can get that victory. But those are my thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, that's what I wanted to see most definitely from both of these guys. But I mean, coming into that next fight, and we see again, they're going to be much more improved fighters. I feel bad for anyone else who has to step in front of these guys, because these guys are they're gonna lay out a path for themselves, and they're riding on the high. Hopefully, they continue with this. They don't slack within their career or what they put on tonight. They continue to move forward with what they put out here tonight. That's what I hope for. I hope that these guys do not slack, start to kind of recede in their careers, get too comfortable and start to slack off, because I think this is the the right spot for both of these fighters, and they need to go upward with where they're at, because a lot of fans are going to be talking about them. Their names are raised. I follow Poochie on Instagram, so I always see him speaking about knockouts, talking to FA. He does a lot of live with other fighters and panels and stuff on his Instagram. But this guy Galenta is definitely going to start having a following, so it's something for them to feed up off of. And boxing can turn out to being what he wanted it to be. He has to be focused, dedicate himself to the sport, because he came down from 300 pounds, like they were saying on the telecast, that he's already dedicated from there, and he came in here and looked in tremendous shape. And so he has a true dedication to the sport, and hopefully it brings him a great deal of success, and it will pay him right. But that's my thoughts on that.
Yeah, and just one more thing about him formerly playing football. You have to know that guy is agile. So being in the ring, boxing, you have to learn how to move as a boxer. But I've seen football players try to become boxers, and I've seen basketball players try to become boxers. And he is the best that I've seen technique-wise. He looks like he's been doing it for a long time. And salute to him, salute to his victory tonight, and I look forward to seeing him again in the future. Now, moving back to the card, the junior welterweight fight that preceded that, Reggie, between Omar Juarez and Al Riviera. That fight was interesting. I listened to the pre-fight story that they had about Omar Juarez, where he's like done like public speaking and stuff like that, and I was very impressed with his mentoring of this small blind kid who's an artist, who actually painted pictures for him as a boxer. And it was like, he's blind, but he painted this artwork. It was beautiful. I was like, man, I was really touched by that. One was a picture of Omar standing there with a belt on and everything, and it was pretty cool that the kid, though blind, was able to paint these images in support of Omar. I was impressed with that. And he came into the fight as the favorite, but this kid from the Philippines, Reggie, Al Rivera, that's right, you guys, his name is Al, A-L-L. He had a larger record. I think he had 21 fights and 5 losses or something like that. And I was a little concerned because the number of fights he had. And Juarez came in, I think he only had like 11 or 12 fights or something. It wasn't as many. It wasn't even close. But early in the round, he caught a shot to the eye that immediately in the first round started swelling his eye up. And from that point, he began to run into some problems. Personally, I think that they kind of bit off a little more than they could chew in that fight. And All was more experienced, but was not a huge offensive threat. But he still moved his hands enough to be busy enough to win this fight. If you had a chance to see that fight, what were your impressions of this particular match?
I thought it was one where they may have bit off a little more they can chew, but Rivera was looking, not Rivera, but Javier, what's his name? What's Omar's name?
Omar Juarez.
Yeah, Juarez. Juarez. He was just going to accept it for what it was. He was in there. He fought this guy. He tried to make the adjustments, but like you said, early in that round where he stood straight in the line of catching those left hands that came straight down the middle. There's a couple of them that he ran into, and once he put that swell on the eye, started to close the eye, he wasn't start having the issues. But he still stood in there and banged. I was worried about what his power become an issue where he couldn't keep this guy who has a great deal of finishes on his record. Could he keep this guy up off of him? And for moments, he was able to back. All up. He was able to back Rivera up for moments in the fight, but it wasn't enough to keep Rivera constantly on his back foot. He just overcome whatever combinations is put on him and then start coming back forward. But Omar, he mixed things up well. He mixed things up very well with his combination work, his pivoting. He looked funny doing all that posturing stuff he was doing in there, resetting himself, going into a posture, looking for certain punches to get in there, and he'll deliver his punches in bunches. But it just wasn't enough. It wasn't enough to hurt Rivera, to do anything to keep Rivera from throwing the more powerful shots that he needed to stay out the way of. And then he ultimately ended up getting cracked with one of those punches that ended up dropping him. But he ended up getting right back up. I thought there was a little iffy about that knockdown. Not sure if it was even should have been credited as a knockdown, but he ended up getting right back up, back into the box. And with him being a favorite and him biting off more than they can chew, it still was a learning opportunity for him because he still battled his way through it. He still fought his way through it. His thing, he just doesn't have enough power to keep a guy that's known for his power second guessing or even backing up. The power is just going to be an issue for him. So he's going to have to utilize better boxing and keeping out the way of stuff and better head movement.
Yeah, I agree with that. But it was a good learning experience for him, too. I mean, you're in the big leagues now. You're a professional fighter. You go back to the drawing board, work some things out, carefully calculate what your next opponent will be, and go out there and work on some things and, you know, get back on the winning track. But it was a nice little scrape between two young fighters out there. Let's get to the one that took place before that one, Reggie, and that was that junior middleweight fight between Leon Lawson, the cousin or nephew of Andre Durrell, and Nathan Gallimore. That fight right there was very interesting. And Gallimore had the fortunate experience of having taken on the tall Mexican kid. Remember, in the fight that he fought.
Fondor.
Fondor, yeah.
That Fondor fight. But this one, I didn't see this fight, so I'm going to listen to you on it.
Yeah, and Fondor, the thing about Fondor, who relished fighting on the inside, and Gallimore kept making the mistake of trying to fight him on the inside, where he should have taken advantage in the opposite of what he did tonight, because if he had tried to box Fondor from the outside, he may have had a chance to score more rounds, because Fondor just wants to get in and bang. In this fight, Lawson wanted to stay at a distance, and Gallimore got on the inside with him, and that's what really began to expose Leon Lawson's deficiencies. He's not good at mid-range, and he's not good definitely on the inside. And once Gallimore figured that out after like the first two rounds, because I saw Lawson winning the first two rounds pretty easily, but then things changed in that third round where Gallimore began to pot shot and leap in with shots. And throughout the fight, he threw some fierce body punches, Reggie. There were a few hooks to the body, a few right hands to the body that actually made Lawson double over and start to lean on him and grab him and hold him, to so much to the degree that the ref was threatening to take a point from him because he was holding entirely too much and not even fighting. He was just holding. When Gallimore got close, he just reached out and grabbed him and started locking him up. It was one of those things where he was not comfortable with the pressure. And here again, an experienced fighter like a Gallimore, who's lost to only the top class fighters in boxing. He guys like this, he beats. you know. And when you think about he having that victory over Jason Rosario, it all comes to fruition. It's like you realize that Nathan Gallimore may not be a championship caliber fighter, but he's not a gatekeeper either. He's one of those guys that will, if you could get past him, you got something. And that's not an easy thing, because the men who've defeated him have all been championship caliber fighters. So here on this night, he took it to Leon Lawson, and actually, I'll go as far as to say I think he took his heart somewhat in the fight. Now, Lawson's continued to try to box, and he just, I mean, there were a couple of shots that he took that snapped his head back and snapped his head over, and I was like, ooh, that was a solid shot. I just didn't like what was happening in there after a few rounds. And there was a series of rounds there where I think Gallimore won like 4 rounds in a row. And I was like, man, it's getting hard for this kid out there. And he came back and he kind of smothered some shots of Gallimore and boxed and stole a couple of rounds. But even the 10th round, which he really needed if he was going to be considered in this fight for scoring wise, he let the round get away from him when there were moments in that round where Gallimore was just all over him, man. And it's a learning experience. He could chalk it up to that. But the kid is very tall for the weight, 54 pounds, and 6'5". I mean, 6'4", I think they said. But it's very tall, very rangy. But he's got to get his strength up too, Reggie, because he wasn't the stronger guy in the ring. He was just the taller guy. And he's going to have to learn how to fight in close and mid-range, because the blueprint is out there now. People can see, oh, you get inside them old long, lanky arms, and all he want to do is grab you. You know, he ain't got nothing like no check hooks, uppercuts, you know, body work on the inside like Fondura. Fondura loves and relishes being on the inside. So I think Fondura was like a guy who could fight like that to begin with, but maybe he had a growing spell or something and he just shot up a few inches like kids can do. You know, one kid went away for the summer that I knew coming up. He was like 5'11". He come back from summer camp and he was like 6'4". I was like, dang, dunking and stuff. I'm like, yeah, this kid was 5'11" and now he's 6'4" and dunking on everybody and stuff. So it can happen. So that's probably what happened with Fondura. But yeah, those are my thoughts on that fight, you know. So yeah, but still, his hat is still in the ring, and someone who has a title, if they want to defend the title or have a good title defense, you could, you know, there you go. That's a guy you can make some good money because he's gonna show up and he's gonna try to win. It's not like he's gonna just come in and lay down. So, but those are my thoughts on that one, Reggie.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, I caught that one very late. It just looked like a very awkward fight from where I caught it, like in round. I don't know if I caught it in round 7 or something. Gallimore looked like he was fighting in kind of a Bubu Andrade type style. When Bubu Andrade fights in that kind of awkward, weird type style, he almost looked like that to me. But I didn't catch enough of the fight, and seeing that the other guy I was hearing, he was 21. He just looked out of his league in there as well. He couldn't figure things out, but he's only 21, so they got to take him back to the drawing table. Put him in there with the experience. He has to learn from that loss.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But, yeah. So, but man, this was a great Sunday night of boxing on PBC, man. When they want to, they could put on some darn good cards, can't they? And on free TV. You know, they have a lot of fighters over there, but when they want to, they can put on some real humdingers, man.
And the fighters have to be willing to shine in these moments.
Yeah, because we've seen instances where certain fighters don't want to fight other fighters. When that happens, it slows the sport down. But when fighters decide to step up, like those two cruiserweights tonight decided, hey, I'll fight the guy. And you know what? It's like, look what we were awarded with. And look at the respect that both of them garner off of the seriousness of their competitive natures in the ring against one another. That's all we could ask for, man. We're not asking to see somebody get killed or something like that. We're just asking to see competitive spirit warrior based matches where somebody really shows their mettle and can persevere and push through and gain victory. That's what we asked for, and they definitely delivered with that tonight. So I'm happy with it. I'm glad I tuned in. I was like thinking that when L-Dub sent me the information that these fights were taking place, and shout out to L-Dub, man. He be on top of everything when it comes down to these matches, man. Big, great, and small, so it's like that brother be up on it, and I really appreciate him giving me the information on this one, because it was definitely worth tuning in. I mean, we've seen far worse cards, right? Far worse. And Reggie, the earlier fights that were on Fox PBC, Fox 1. Did you see any of those?
No, because I was out and about, and I didn't even know they were starting the cards this early. I thought it was just that main event at 5 o'clock West Coast time.
Yeah, so 5 o'clock my time, so that's Central. 5 to 6, they had undercards for this main event on PBC Fox 1, FS1. And I found that out because Kurt Sugar had told me. And salute to Kurt Sugar for doing that, because I was able to tune in and watch some of those matches while I was, eating my dinner. And I'm like, okay, cool. So there was like 4 fights on there or something like that. And I wasn't scoring those fights. I was just tuning in, watching while I was eating. And it was pretty cool. So they had a great night of boxing tonight, man. It was kind of like how ESPN does it when, ESPN has the main event on ESPN Plus or regular, and then the other one, the undercards, vice versa, so you could switch over to the other, before the main event starts. It was kind of, they had done it like that. So it was pretty cool. Nice night of boxing that they had tonight. So, but yeah, I think that's about it for tonight, Reggie. We've covered a tremendous card that we got a chance to see this Sunday evening. Why don't you go ahead and give everybody your final thoughts and everything before we get out?
Yes, sir, man. Y'all keep up on what boxing is delivering. Saturday, Sunday, A+ fights, A+ level fights. This Sunday card delivered A+ level card. The pay-per-view event, A+ level. They're doing a great thing over here on PBC. And just boxing, period. Boxing's been very active. And it's just up to fighters to keep fighting. And even these guys who aren't, household names or whatnot, keep performing. Make yourself a household name. Make it to where people are going to always remember who you are, especially when you put on events like that. And here's 2 relatively unknown fighters who have really elevated themselves based on this type of performance. But that's my thought, man. We'll catch you guys on the next one. And we're getting closer to Wilder Fury 3, getting real close to that.
Yeah, and did you see how Fox was advertising it, man? They were showing commercials and everything. They showed Wilder, they showed Fury, they showed their poster and everything. They kept showing it during commercial breaks and stuff like that. So that was pretty cool. That they're drumming, they're sounding the drums for the rubber match that's coming up next month. So And if they have anything between now and then, we may get more of that. It was good to see Wilder break out with his famous quote in one of those that they showed this evening. So I'm excited, man. It's like we've got some great fights. We got the Charlos coming up. Again, male Charlo this time against Montiel, where they're unifying for undisputed. We've got a few more fights that are coming up. Hey, I can't complain, man. As long as it keeps going like this, we're good. You know what I mean? So, and I did a stream earlier this afternoon talking about Tank Davis and just how, it's like, dude, I'm going to support the kid. There's so many critics and everything, and we are our own worst when it comes down to stuff like that. And I am no longer going to be, just sitting idly by and everything. I'm going to start speaking out a little more because we've got some tremendous talent to offer in this sport. And a lot of them have been getting a raw deal by the powers that be. And you know what? Enough is enough. The voices, the alarms need to be sounded, and people need to pull together. Did you see that crowd that he had out there in Atlanta, Reggie?
One of the best crowds. That's why I had to do a video about that crowd exclusively for that boxing crowd.
Absolutely. I mean, and who else is doing that? You know what I'm saying? So it's like Tank can take any fight that he wants where he really needs to vibe off of the people, and he could take a fight to Atlanta like that, and dude, he'll sell that joint out in a heartbeat, and the people love him. I remember as I was watching the fight, because he, had dropped a couple of the first few rounds, and he had thrown a combination in one of the rounds, like round 4 or something like that. He threw a nice little combination, showed a lot of speed and pop on the punches, but they didn't land and score, but he let his hands go finally, and the whole place just erupted, because he had let his hands go, and he's showing that he's in the fight, so it's like, and you look at the people, Black Hollywood, you had entertainers there, you had former fighters there, you had present fighters there. That's what it's all about, and that's the way people need to realize how to support. And like I said in my stream earlier, you don't even have to be the huge Tank Davis fan, but you have to be a fan of the sport where you see the representation and how there is an agenda against a lot of these young talented fighters out there because they're so damn good, and that others are not even on their level, but they don't want to acknowledge that, and they want to try to freeze people out and things like that. So they do things and they put these minions out there to speak ill against them. Oh, he's boring, and oh, he should have done more. You don't never say these other guys should do more, huh? I don't hear nobody complaining about Vasily Lomachenko's performance last night, huh? They don't complain about him. He won, just like Devin Haney won, and just like Shakur Stevenson won. Every round, knocked the guy down twice, and they still talking about him. So much to the degree that the young man came forward the next day and apologized for his performance, Reggie. Really? And that's because his own were saying things. I don't even think Shakur would have been, troubled by someone else, but it was some of his own speaking ill against him. And we can't have that no more, man. We got to go and attack those guys straight up, and call them out for what they are. Mr. Bojangles. Yeah. But, those are my closing thoughts, Reggie. Thanks for a great call on the card tonight. You did a great job on that. Very exciting. You need to keep you a nice cold drink or hot drink, whatever you need to drink while you're doing those calls, because you get excited and your voice get to cracking and stuff. So you keep you a drink there when you calling them fights, man, so you can replenish yourself.
No, I'll be having like a quarter-gallon jug, but when them fights be too exciting, I forget to drink it. Grab a jug. I'm like, that 1 minute break starts so fast. I'm like trying to catch in the chat. As long as they keep them fights exciting, I'll go without water. And let me feed off of what you said about. Let me feed off what you said about these fans and about the little chunk stuff that goes on with them. And what they talk about is boring and this and that style. If any of these type of fans are fans of baseball and they use that type of language, I tend to tell them to shut the you know what up.
Yeah.
Because if you can sit there and act as if you enjoy a baseball game, you can sit back and enjoy the art that's being displayed within a boxing match. Because baseball is probably one of the most boringest, slow-paced sports that is out there. So you're not looking for it, and you don't see celebrations and none of that stuff. So these dudes doing that, we already know where they come from, and they need to be told where they can go with that in aggressive type manners, because they don't showcase that nowhere else but towards specific people. The other thing that was beautiful about that crowd, not so much that it was a black crowd, but that it was a respectable crowd. And the fact that they even showed Barrios that level of respect, and him as a Mexican fighter wants to return down to Atlanta, because these were boxing fans who respected the sport, and they respected the fact that he fought like a warrior, and they gave him his just due. They didn't boo him. They didn't do none of that disrespectful crap we see amongst others. But that's my final thoughts on that one.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So if you guys didn't get a chance to check out my stream from earlier this afternoon, please do it. It's up here on the channel, on the page, just done a few hours ago. I just had to come out and say something very positive about Tank's performance. I even spoke about Floyd being involved. Yes, there are some things where Floyd needs to pull back or whatever, but I do feel in this instance, Floyd took the lead where Mr. Ford wasn't necessarily as tuned in or dialed in on getting a message home to Tank, because Tank needed that. And I do believe had Floyd not done that, we might not have gotten that type of ending, but it may have gone to a decision. And we can't risk the decisions in fights like that, because the powers that be love to do funny things. So you have to be judge and juror in the ring with your fists, especially when you have the equalizer in a fighter like Tank. So take advantage of that as much as you can. But yeah, man, great show today, Reggie. Great call. And we'll look to get back next weekend when we have some more fights to talk about. And this has been the post-fight show. Morrell Jr. versus Cazares, a one-round stoppage that made David Morrell have people that want to see him immediately again, because it wasn't enough tonight. If you had went to the bathroom or something, the fight was over before you was able to get back to your love seat, your couch, your sofa, or even your seat in the stadium if you happen to be there watching the fight. So fight was over just like that. But yeah, Morrell was victorious. Great fight for him. We look forward to seeing him again in the near future. So for my man Boxing Conversations with Reggie Owens, this is Stormybman. We're going to check out for now. Catch you guys on the next one. Peace, and everybody remain safe. Have a great work week.
Mm-hmm.